Hi everyone, I'm Bruce Howard, Chair of Waiuku Family Support. Welcome to another one of our podcasts. Today's guest is extremely special because she is actually in a different role to what she normally does. Liz is one of our counsellors and 99% of her time is listening. So today we're going to extract words out of her and listen to her unique and special story. She is an incredibly deep and compassionate woman who cares about everyone, but especially the children, which is her speciality. Well, welcome to our next podcast in the series of celebrating Waiuku Family Support's 35th anniversary this year. It's 35 years from the date of registration as a not-for-profit, so that's why we're doing it. It doesn't technically happen until about November, December, that's the 35, but we're in the 35th year of the organisation. So it's fantastic to have you here, Liz.
Thank you.
I'm hoping I'll learn more about you than I currently know. Liz is one of the many vital people in the organisation because she's one of our main counsellors and has been there as long as I have at the organisation.
3 years in January.
3 years in January. Wow. So I've got to ask some obvious questions for me, but they're probably boring to you, but they're not to me. What made you want to become a counsellor?
I guess since my teenage years, I've been in the helping profession. In my teenage years, I tried to get into nursing.
Right.
And didn't get into nursing. But that's the first time I remember, knowing I wanted to be helping.
So why didn't you go ahead with nursing?
They wouldn't have me, Bruce. They've missed out.
Let's get their file. I want to check out why they wouldn't have you. They're idiots.
Yeah. And I think being a teenager, I went for one interview, I was turned down, and that was it at that time. They don't want me. No one's going to want me.
So how long did it from then until the next steps towards becoming a counsellor?
I went on to travel when I was about 20, came home when I was about 24, had my first child and had two more after my first child. And when my youngest turned 5, I wanted to get back out into the workforce because I'd been out of the workforce for a little while. And I still knew that I wanted to be helping. I wanted to be doing something helping. I found out about a social services certificate at MIT.
Right.
And went and did the social services certificate.
So MIT does turn out some good people then?
Sure.
Just checking.
MIT was great. I've got nothing bad to say about MIT.
Will's a lecturer there.
Oh.
Was. So how long was your course at MIT?
Well, I studied for 8 years part-time. I did the certificate in social services, went on and did a diploma in counselling children and young people, and then went on and did a degree. And it was all working around my children. The youngest was 5. So I did it part-time so I could still be a mum and do my studies. And it worked out brilliantly.
And you've really specialised in children. That's the area that's your natural forte, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to do the diploma of counselling children and young people because that's not offered anymore. It's the degree now. It's the degree, that's it.
So what is it about counselling kids that you enjoy?
Probably their innocence and not knowing what's going to come out of their mouth. Just realising what the children are facing today. I've got quite a strong inner child. I like to play. I think I get on well with children. Yeah. You're making me think hard.
Sorry, I'm prone to doing that.
It's Friday.
So how you made an interesting concept, how kids are changing. When you first started doing it to where you're at now, in what way are the kids different?
I would say social media plays a big part, devices, not getting outside, and they seem to be, a lot of these children seem to be little adults, growing up way too quickly.
Wow. And that you think is their social media impact on them?
That and family life.
So how has family life changed that's brought about that?
I don't know if it's changed or if it's still the same. I think some of it's parents or caregivers not being aware. I can give you an example of counselling a 7-year-old child, and she started talking to me about ISIS. And
You're kidding?
no, I'm not kidding. And, that horrified me. It horrified me. And I spoke to her mother about it because it was a bit of a safety concern. And her mother said, I watch the news, but she's sitting there with her tablet. She's not watching the news. She's not listening. I'm like, she is. She is listening. She's listening to every little bit. And she's talking to me about ISIS. And parents aren't aware. They're just not aware.
I can't comprehend a 7-year-old even knowing how to say the word back, let alone anything else about it.
And that 7-year-old, that was years ago. That wasn't recently either. That was a few years ago. Mm.
Wow.
Mm. Things like children having televisions in their bedroom. And, they'll say to me, I get up and watch TV at 2 o'clock in the morning. Mum and Dad don't know. So a lot of it's talking to the caregivers as well. Mm.
That must put you in some pretty tricky situations at times, wouldn't it?
You need to be quite diplomatic. Mm.
So I'd fail miserably.
I possibly do at times too.
Can't imagine that. So when you get a young kid, and what's your goal? What are you trying to? What for you constitutes success? Forget about boards and people like that. What for you constitutes success?
Them walking out in a better space than when they walked in. Building a relationship.
Right.
A child that will open up and talk to me.
What if they need more than talk?
Play. Play is a child's language. Mm. And often children like to be doing something while they're talking. Mm. You'll get those that'll sit for 45 minutes and talk. That's amazing. But other kids, they might like to be drawing or playing with Play-Doh or playing in a sand tray.
So next obvious question for me is, why Waiuku Family Support?
I was a volunteer there in 2005. I was a volunteer for about a year.
Wow.
And that's when I started my studies, 2005. And when I started my studies, I said it would be great to, find an agency and see if you can do some voluntary work there and just find out a bit about how it runs. So I did some voluntary work there, and about 3 years ago I started full-time work, Waiuku Family Support.
So what was the trigger that shifted you from wherever you were to the current scenario of being at Waiuku Family Support?
My job prior. I loved my job that I had before Waiuku Family Support. Unfortunately, the management was a little bit questionable.
There's overwhelming evidence that most people, the sole reason they leave their job is because of their bosses. So you wouldn't be standing alone in that statement,
Right.
I'd feel confident. Mm. So describe your journey at Waiuku Family Support and what you're thinking of it, where it's going and what it's trying to do now, because it's going down quite a different path in lots of ways now.
My journey, I started just before the first lockdown. So my last 3 years has been a mixture of being in the office, working from home, being in lockdowns. So it's been interesting 3 years. Very interesting.
How have you coped doing counselling in a lockdown situation?
Telephone calls.
Right.
Also, I did a couple of little things like deliver food parcels. If I had free time, I would do little bits and pieces on top of the counselling. Some of my clients would talk on the phone all day long. Others, no, I'll wait and see you face to face.
But how did you find it as a counsellor not actually having a physical person? Because most counsellors read more than just the voice.
That's right. Very difficult. And that was my first experience of talking to people on the phone. I was not trained in any manner, so it was very much learn as I went. And you're right, you know, seeing someone face to face, you've got body language, you can read their faces. Yeah, it's very different talking to someone on the phone, especially the silences. on the phone.
Yeah, they're terrifying at times, aren't
Are
they?
you still there?
Yeah. And you don't know what's going on in their head because you can't read the human being to say this person's actually somehow they're getting more stressed or less stressed. Those triggers are not available to you in just a phone call.
And also confidentiality.
Yes.
When you ring someone, you don't know who else is around. So you've got to be careful of that as well. And sometimes, I might ring a mum and she might have 4 preschoolers at home. And there wasn't a chance really of having a conversation.
Yeah.
So, it could be very difficult. We did the best. Well, I did the best under the circumstances, did what I could with what I had.
Well, from what I hear, you did a very good job.
Thank you.
Very glowing reports. Didn't surprise me. Is what the tools you have access to as a counsellor now, are they being more constructive than what you had when you first started, or are they just the same?
I would say they're the same, but in saying that, I've done a lot more study over the years since my bachelor's degree I finished in 2013. So that's another 9 or 10 years. You keep learning. You keep learning and learning and learning. So I imagine I pick up different skills along the way, different tools.
Not wanted to do your masters?
No. No. Never say never, but today, no. No.
Okay. I'll ask you again tomorrow.
Yeah.
So what are the things that I'm not going to ask the opposite question. So what are the things you enjoy about working with the rest of the team at Waiuku Family Support?
They're a great team. We all gel well. And I guess we've all got similar mindsets. We're in the work that we're in, because we want to be there. We gel well. I really enjoy going into the office, working as a team. I really missed it when I was working from home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really missed it. That, contact with colleagues and conversations and peer support, meetings. Yeah, missed it a lot. Wasn't the same. And Zoom meetings
are not the same.
Not the same.
I agree. I think it's part of our societal transfer at the moment is how do we cope, because some people have loved lockdown because now they can work from home and they want to do it. I personally think it puts more stress on you working from home than going to an office, because some of the most constructive thing gets done over the cup of tea, not coffee, the glass of water. It's those informal chats that you don't have when you're not going to ring up and have that conversation from home with one of your colleagues.
No, that's right.
And it's where you can actually be supportive and caring to each other. So what techniques did you employ on yourself during that time because of those tools not being available to you?
Self-care. I turned on the TV and did some of the hour exercise classes in the mornings. And I guess, technology, as much as I don't like it, do like it, I had that contact with family and friends, phones, videos, video chats. I walked a lot. The golf course was empty. I used to love walking around the golf course.
Right.
So that was sad when lockdown finished and all the golfers came back.
Yes, I actually think as a community, especially during the first lockdown, walking's one of the few exercises I can do because all my flipping body injuries, etc. And I was finding pockets of community in the walks all around because people were getting out because they were going stir crazy in their houses. And some of the conversations I walked past were absolutely fascinating. And now it's gone again. Because we're out of lockdown and the sense of community's diminished, it feels like to me. But that first lockdown, I'll never forget it. And I even caught up with some of the board members because some of my walks back then were quite a distance. I used to walk around by the golf course from my side of town. But now I have a much shorter walks. That's just age, wear and tear. So what's your dreams for the future of Waiuku Family Support?
Wow.
Because you were part of the noho at Cook's Beach.
Bigger and better.
In what sense?
I don't know. One of my dreams is to have a huge playroom for the children.
Yeah.
Where they can make lots of mess. How's that for a dream?
I think it's fantastic, to be honest. If people don't dream stuff, we have no vision to go of anywhere to go. Dreamers are an integral part of a healthy society. I mean that really sincerely, and because it's often out of people's dreams that reality becomes. You look at over the course of our lifetimes, the amount of stuff that was sci-fi when we were young people, and it's every day now. You know, the Jetsons seemed off the planet, and yet there's parts of the world where the Jetsons are reality now. So, you know, dreaming and aspiring for things to be bigger or better or whatever are important, are a healthy thing.
Yeah.
So it's not silly to me, your suggestion.
And before COVID, it was a bit of a drop-in centre. You know, people walked in and sat and had a coffee and things, which we haven't really been able to do.
We've tried to get it going a few times, but it's we've had COVID's still around.
Yeah, that's right. That's
the sad reality.
So maybe one day, you know, be able to open the door a bit more. I actually found some paperwork that I got given in 2005.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. My children call me a hoarder. But I've kept it for a reason. But it says, it's got a description of what the agency offered back then. And a lot of it was drop-in, being a drop-in centre, and befriending.
Wow.
Yeah, befriending people. And when I was there as a volunteer, there were 22 support staff.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got it written down here.
Wow.
So I've got a list, and it's 22 support staff, I think 6 board of trustees, and a counsellor, and the food bank, and a cleaner.
Good grief.
Yeah, so that was the staff.
Wow. That's
And I
phenomenally
thought,
bigger.
Thank goodness I've got the typed paperwork I was given, because I never would have remembered that. I never would have remembered how many support staff there were, and that there was one counsellor when I started there. And I remember another one being employed while I was volunteering there that year. I don't think there were social workers. Well, they would have been written on that staff sheet. There weren't social workers even. I think the manager was a counsellor.
Right.
When I worked there as a volunteer. But yeah, so it was pretty much run by the support staff.
And now we've got more social workers than counsellors.
Yeah, there's 5 plus one on placement at the moment. So there's lots of social workers there at the moment. And no support staff, no volunteers at the moment.
No volunteers, no support staff. But how many? There's only 2 of you counselling, isn't there, at the moment?
Yes, yeah, there is.
Is that enough?
It's really difficult to answer that question. There is a waiting list at the moment, and everyone's got a waiting list. Like you can't. There's nowhere without a waiting list that I know of. But you start working your way through that waiting list, and someone might have found somewhere else. Someone might have decided, no, we don't want counselling anymore. So it's hard to
quantify.
Yeah, it's really hard.
I went through Spring Hill Prison about 5 years ago when I was in my trust, and then I was talking with the deputy warden there, lovely Maori woman, and I said, of the people that are in here, in reality, just in percentages, how many people should be here? And the figure she gave was exactly the same as my gut instinct from being a policeman, was 5 to 7%. And it's never gone away from me, and I sit there and I wonder, is what we're doing like that? How many people actually require us? And how many people are we are nice to have? And just in a broad general sweeping terms, I'm not asking for specific concretes. And it's not a trap, I assure you.
I'm not sure I've understood what you've said.
Well, the people that go to prison are not there through choice. That's glaringly obvious. But the people who come in for our services at Waiuku Family Support are choice. But are 100% of them that they actually do require us, or is it because we're a nice-to-have service for them? It's a bit I know it's a question, but that's me.
I might have to think about that one.
Need a rest?
I like to think. I don't know. I guess everyone that walks through the door has a need.
I'm not critical of the system or any people. This is my curious brain. That's how it works. Because part of what goes on for me, and I don't know, and I don't like asking questions. I don't sort of know the answer to myself. But how many people out there in our society are in crisis? Because we'll never know the answer to that.
No.
And how do we define that someone's in crisis? Again...
because my crisis might not be the same as somebody else's crisis.
Exactly.
They might come in a crisis and that's their reality.
Yes.
Not mine.
Yes. And that's where the work we do is very hard to measure and quantify for that very reason. And it's like that drop-in concept, and that's what the new building, that's what the ground floor is 100% designed around, wanting to go back to, but going back to that drop-in centre. And I know the homeless in Waiuku, when Greg died, I went down to Hamilton to his funeral, and they, Ray and they took a minibus full of them all down there for his funeral, which I thought was really extraordinarily special. But it's the first time that Greg I always had a relationship with, and I knew Greg really well and chatted with him lots. But the others I haven't got to know as well, and it was never a deliberate thing. It was just the way Greg was sleeping in the church door that I go to, so and people wanted to remove, and I was attacking them. How can you say you're the church when you want to remove someone?
That's right.
I still struggle with that theologically as well as a human being side. But listening to the others talking, and that's what they found during COVID, was their ability to just pop in and get a cup of tea and know that they could always get a cup of tea or coffee or whatever, that they could do that, and that we were always there for them, even if they didn't need us at that particular time, that they were a place where they could have safe dialogue.
Yeah, and just knowing we were there, not having to walk through the door, but knowing they could if they wanted to.
Exactly. And that COVID has been, I think, out of all the things that COVID's done harm to us, that I think is my gut feel, and that's all it is. I can't quantify it, but it feels to me that is the biggest disruption we've had. And I don't think we've come close to untapping the damage that's been happening during COVID, because we really, again, you can't. It's something you can't put a tape measure against. You can't wrap numbers around.
And it's still going on, really, isn't it? A bit of uncertainty.
Huge amount.
We're still not certain about what's happening. Is there going to be another lockdown? Who knows?
Well,
so it's still living in an uncertain space.
We're still being cautious, because we're getting staff members still getting COVID occasionally and things like that. So everyone still lives on edge with it.
Yeah. And I was just listening to something before I came in here, talking about the summertime in New Zealand. Everybody's going to be socialising again. What's going to happen? So they're already talking about what might happen over the next few months. And, who knows?
One of the experts was on the news just before I came over here with Will, and he was saying words to that effect, that and part of it, I think, is it's psychological. We're COVIDed out, and because it's, one of my uncles was caught in the great polio epidemic, and he got polio. You couldn't wipe that out of your mind, because the cripples were still around, the physical effects of people suffering from it. Whereas with COVID, it's not in our face like that forever. So we have a different mindset, sadly. I don't know whether it's sad or whether it's appropriate. I don't know. You're the psychologist more than me.
No, I'm not a psychologist.
closer to one than I am. So, what are the big challenges going forward for you as a counsellor at Waiuku Family Support?
I haven't thought of any challenges, to tell you the truth. Maybe I'm too much of a one day at a time person. The challenges going forward, are we going to get busier and busier and busier? Is the wait list going to get longer and longer and longer? Are we going to need to employ more staff? Are we going to be able to employ more staff if we need to?
That last one, sadly, is a political question because,
right.
I raised it at the last board meeting. If we have a change of government next year, that's going to have very disturbing consequences for an organisation like us. Because I don't care what rhetoric they say, the current opposition do not have their track record is actually in providing clients for us, but not providing the funds to deal with the clients. And I live in fear of those days coming back. We're part of what we're trying long term to do is set up a financial model that change of government won't even be a hiccup for us, because that's where, as an organisation, to genuinely look after our clients and our community, we've got to be financially free from the restraints of government, because they're just unreliable lot. It doesn't matter what coloured ink they are, they're unreliable. Yep. So, but their problem is our client base is not the ones who can write out big cheques for us.
That's right. That is right.
So, but we have started the discussion at board level, I can promise you that much. I'm not saying we're even close to a solution, but we've started the discussion. We've also, we're launching at the 35-year celebration, the start of the fundraising for the new building. So that the new building will not be the cure of all the problems, but it'll actually symbolically make a big statement to the community. And I think it will actually make a difference in how we operate. Our environment does change the way we view the world and behave. And the same with our community. And when your community, all the buildings are old and dilapidated, guess where the thinking is? And if we zap it up into a bit of life and a bit of freshness and looking through a different lens, what's that Lao Tse Tung saying, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a first step.
That's right. One small step.
Yep. And we've got to do it. And we've got to take a leadership role as an organisation, is my belief. Does that make you nervous that as chair of the board I talk like that?
No.
Why not? I'm joking. Doesn't worry you?
Oh, the politics and all that side of it?
No, the fact that we're going down the path that we are of wanting to get that new building and have a new model of, our strategic plan that we put together from the NOHO is vastly different to anyone else in the country at the moment. There's others starting to take up the model that we have and saying it's a piece of artwork as our strategic plan. I still love it to pieces, what we did at that retreat.
Yeah.
And that piece of artwork, I think, is sensational, and it's still as relevant today as it was back then for me.
No, it's exciting. It's an adventure.
It is.
Yeah.
So what's Liz's role in that adventure?
Well, it's like looking into a crystal ball.
Well, that's what we did at the NOHO.
Don't know, I'm a bit stumped. Carry on as I am.
I don't have a problem with that, because I know the work you're doing is exceptional and it's highly regarded, not just within the community of Waiuku, but further afield with the other agencies that we deal with.
And I guess getting behind any fundraising, doing as a staff member, what I can from that angle, anything I can do.
Yep.
But I might need to be reminded what I can do.
My personal philosophy is the board, that's the fundraising is when the board have got to stand up and be accounted for.
Yeah.
I actually personally believe that the board should find the money. We should consult with the staff about, as I do with Karen every week about it all, about who should we be approaching and what arguments should we put up, because it's overall for us to sit there and say we need this. But to ask for someone to, I don't want someone to part with $1,000. I want to say, where's $100,000 from you? And there's a different argument to the $1,000 to the $100,000. So what's the value in someone giving us $100,000? What wouldn't you thinking if you, because look, to go out and sell $2 raffle tickets, I can do that all day long. That's a walk in the park. But to go out and ask for someone to part with $100,000, you've got to have quite a different argument, because that someone who's got $100,000 is not prepared to write it off as someone will their $2 for a raffle ticket.
I guess you've got to know who to ask.
But even when you do, you've got to know what you're going to say, what's in it for you, because that's the sad statement of society nowadays. What's in it for the other party? When I fundraised to take the team to Brazil for World Schools, it was a walk in the park, because the industries were saying one of our people is going to represent New Zealand and our skill set, and therefore we can get commercial marketing value out of that. We can't make a promise that you're going to get marketing advantage out of putting $100,000 into our new building. So that's the bit that I'm still wrestling with in my head, is what do you say to the community, to the parts of the community who can afford to give, why they should dip into their pocket for the work that we do? And I appreciate any little cues and clues.
Well, I guess if they're part of the community and they want to see that community flourish and do better, see people being helped, given a leg up.
So you're on the same track as my thinking, is that the new housing that's going in, you've got to be pretty blind to be in Waiuku to say there's not going to be huge population growth in the next number of years.
That's right.
And the reality is they're going to be a lot of young families, because like you came to Waiuku first because it's still cheaper housing than there. So you'll bring in all the young family problems that just automatically flow on. So our volumes are going to grow logically because of those dynamics. The people that have the money of the old guard is the problem.
And sometimes the people with the money are the least likely to part with it.
Yeah, because that's how they got their money.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So it's tricky, isn't it?
Well, I had a young guy knock on my door yesterday collecting for IHC. And I had to say, look, I hate to say this to you, mate, but I'm a pensioner. I actually can't do it. And I did genuinely mean that, because when I was in the police, I did thousands of voluntary hours as a volunteer to IHC in Hamilton, because we had a couple of IHC homes, and I used to go there on my days off, as a heck of a lot of us young cops did, because what we could think was that could be one of our kids in there. And so we willingly, and when one of them went missing, we got stressed ourselves till we found them. Yeah. And so to sit there and say to that guy last night, I'm sorry, I genuinely can't help you. I believe in your cause. It's nothing about your cause or you. I just can't do it. It's uncomfortable. But I know there's an awful lot of people out there that, my oldest brother, when he was alive, he got really upset because one of the outfits that he invested heavily in went belly up through white collar crime, and he had to cut back his overseas trips, and he'd only done 4 that year because he didn't have the money to do as usual. And that was his definition of hardship.
Yeah.
I thought, we all walk in different planets.
That's right. And as a dear old friend always used to say to me, there ain't nowt queerer than folk. And I remember that every day.
I had my first PA, that's what she used to say to me to keep me calm at times. Yeah, it's true. But that's the thing with the new building and also part of the services, because I had neighbours next door to me at one stage, and the family violence that was going on by the noise that I was listening to was horrendous. And so one day he'd gone to work and I went over and saw her, and I said, look, I'm not prying, and please don't misinterpret this the wrong way, but I can't help but hear, and I'm a former policeman and it upsets me. I said, I'm the chair of Waiuku Family Support, and I tell you what, they will look after you, and they're really, really, really professional, and your privacy will be protected and all that. I'm just saying there's help out there if you wanted it. I came home feeling really inadequate with what I'd done, and then 2 weeks later they shifted, and I have no idea where they've gone. And I thought, that actually hasn't fixed anything. If that violence is going on there, it'll go on in the new location wherever they've gone to.
But imagine if you hadn't done it.
Oh, I couldn't have slept with myself. I had to do what I did, and it was a real wrestling. Where are the boundaries? Because there aren't any definable boundaries on a lot of the work we do as Waiuku Family Support.
Right.
What is correct and what isn't? What you protect one party's privacy, but you put another party at risk.
Yeah.
And especially with you dealing with kids, that's a daily reality, isn't it? That tension.
Yeah. Very much case by case, person by person.
Have you had any, I don't want you to give details because this is not a confessional, thank goodness, but where ones haven't gone the way you might have liked?
Maybe clients I've seen and they've stopped coming and not knowing why, and wondering, probably still wonder, what happened to that person? I wonder what happened to that person. And maybe making a report of concern, and then it's out of your hands. You've got no say in what happens after that. And should I have done that? And of course, I should have, but it's out of your hands after that.
Was that a hard skill to learn?
Report of concern?
The step inside and saying it's no longer my concern.
I can say it's no longer my concern.
Yeah, but what's the reality inside is what I'm driving at.
Yeah.
Because my sense that knowing you,
Yeah. Oh, there's definitely clients that you never forget. Even from years ago, I'm thinking, I wonder what that child's doing now. That child will be 18. I wonder where he is. You don't forget people.
Yeah. And there's no bigger thrill when you accidentally come across them later in life and think, gee, they've turned out fantastic. I played a little part in that.
Yeah.
So with the 35th celebrations coming up, how are you feeling about that?
That's great. It's a big celebration and should be celebrated. Yeah, it's great. I'm glad that there's all sorts of things happening.
Well, that's your GM who's brilliant at that stuff. She is a whiz kid at that stuff.
Yeah.
But
so no, it's definitely something to celebrate, time to celebrate.
I actually think as an organisational level, we and I'm probably going to raise it in due course with the board, is we actually need to set aside times to stop and celebrate, because the work we do is unique and it's difficult a lot of the time, and a lot of the time it's thankless. And so we need to work, in my opinion, in getting in saying, let's just stop and say, we're doing okay. We're doing all right. Let's just be grateful for each other.
Yeah, I'll be on board with that.
Yeah.
Celebration.
Yeah. Well, everyone should enjoy
Any
a good
excuse.
party. Any excuse for drinks after work.
Yeah.
Yeah, sadly, the police have killed that with drinks after work.
Yeah, but I feel like I feel appreciated there. Definitely feel appreciated.
Good.
And I hope all the staff do. I'm sure they all do. Yeah, I've felt appreciated from the very start.
Good.
And it makes a big difference to your work life, when you know you're appreciated.
So does the organisation feel the same, better or worse than when you started 3 years ago?
It's been such a muddly 3 years.
Yeah, I know. But it still has feelings.
The same, better or worse. There's been so many changes too. When I started, I think there was there 4 or 5 of us in total?
Yeah.
And that's changed because I think we've doubled. I think the staff's doubled.
Yes, has.
So better having, more people, a variety of people. Yeah, that's been better. I think better, definitely better. But pinpointing what, why, who...
I don't know. I'm deliberately not wanting to put you on the hot spot. That's not even slightly fair or appropriate. But when your gut says that it's feeling better, then that's probably your gut.
That's enough.
Your gut's more accurate than any other thermometer methodology, in my opinion. In fairness, that's the feeling of the board. We feel we've made progress. In fact, sometimes we sit there and think, crikeys, when we started 3-4 years ago, and there's still a couple of the 3 of the old board members still on it from before all the changes started to happen. And on the last board meeting that we talked at the end about the change, and they were saying it's just so exciting to actually have the board talking like that is huge in my opinion. It's really, really good, and you can't fudge that, because not in a community like the size of ours. You can't, if you work in a big corporate, misleading the board's a work of art that most chief executives get up to. But you can't do that in a small organisation, in a small community. It's everybody knows everybody's reality. So
and I think I'm just thinking of the last 3 years, what we've all been through together.
Yes.
The COVID, has that brought us all closer together, going through all that as a team? I think it probably has. It's been unusual times, but we've been in it together.
Everybody's rallied around the flag, isn't it? That's cool. So is there anything you'd like to say to wrap this up before, and then we'll start the real torture? No, I'm joking.
It wasn't as anxiety-provoking as I thought it might be.
So I wasn't misleading.
No, it's nice having a chat.
Yes.
Casual chat.
And that's what this purpose is about. That's why Will calls it Campfire Studios, because in the old days we
sit around the campfire
and sell tall tales and true.
Wow.
And I can remember as a kid going to camps, and there would be a bonfire on the last night, and everybody would sit around on the big logs, and the conversations flowed. So that's the concept behind what we're doing here, that it is a conversation. It's not an interview. It's not a... It's nothing evil. And as I said to someone the other day, this is actually about gathering the oral history.
Right.
Because the person said to me, but you've got all the written records. They don't... Written records only tell you what gets sanitised, that you want to be public information. When we sit down and we talk about it, you talk in a totally different style and a manner and with a lot more accuracy and truth, in my opinion, when you have a campfire conversation. So that's the driver behind the doing these, and I get blown away every one time we do one of these. What I get to learn, I'm very selfish because I think I come out getting the most out of them. So it's brilliant.
Yeah. Now, if anyone asks me, I'll say, no, just go and do it. It's a breeze.
It's a breeze. The flames get blowing everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Liz. It's been really good, and I just want to say, in my two roles as host of this but especially as chair, that I consider a privilege to work alongside all you guys and what we're doing as an organisation, because I believe our organisation is making an absolutely positive, constructive difference in people's lives.
Yep.
And you can never get money that matches the feeling that gives you on the inside. And I'm not saying money's not important, I'm just saying what goes on inside of us. When you ask people what's the best experience in your life, it's always they'll tell you about an experience rather than about money.
That's right.
That's what gives our life meaning and value, is the things we've experienced, the good things we've experienced.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking time out from your frantic schedule and coming here for the 5 hours. Or did I get that time wrong?
I don't know. You're welcome. And it's a privilege for me to be part of the team as well. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, I know. Appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
Thank you.